This is a story about a large company accusing another large company of deliberately trying to drive down its stock price to make money. If the allegations are true, it's like fixing a game. The company being accused is one of the largest hedge funds in the world, called SAC. Hedge funds are exclusive investment pools for the ultra-rich. Virtually unregulated, they operate in secrecy. Normally, when most people buy a stock, they hope the price will go up. But one of the strategies hedge funds use is called selling short, in which they bet lots of money that a company's stock price will fall. If you have money in a retirement account or a pension fund, pay attention, because hedge funds have become a major force in the market. When they make a move or take a position, as they say, it can affect your bottom line. In this case, one of the largest companies in Canada is claiming that the hedge fund SAC was trying to make a killing by killing the company.
When you've got these people out there trying to bring you down, we're lucky we survived.
Eugene Melnick is the CEO of BioVale, the Canadian pharmaceutical company that's suing the hedge fund SAC and others.
There's a group of people that got together and essentially attacked the company by putting out false reports, and we're just fighting back for our shareholders.
Is your allegation that SAC made up a lot of this stuff in order to depress the stock so they could sell it short?
That's what's alleged in the complaint.
What this could come down to is a battle of the titans. On one side, Stephen Cohen, owner of the hedge fund SAC. So reclusive, this is the only video we could find of him. He lives all but secluded on this sprawling Greenwich, Connecticut estate. His salary last year was reportedly $500 million. On the other side, BioVale's Eugene Melnick, also successful and wealthy. While Stephen Cohen has a hockey rink on his property, Melnick owns an NHL hockey team. This fight between the hedge fund owner and the CEO could get brutal. The alleged conspiracy began here in Arizona at Camelback, a stock analysis firm that publishes supposedly impartial financial reports on various companies to help investors with advice about stocks. In the spring of 2003, the hedge fund SAC asked them for a report on Eugene Melnick's company, BioVale. Darrell Smith, a former Camelback salesman, says that during a conference call with an SAC trader, it became clear the hedge fund had an agenda. Are they pretty clearly saying, give me something that's going to drive the stock down? Is that, at least that's what you understood?
Oh, there was no question. I mean,
and Darrell says the hedge fund SAC knew what they wanted the report to say.
They practically wrote the report themselves.
They practically wrote the report themselves?
Yeah, I expected our guys to start talking about what they saw in BioVale. But no, it was just a one-way download from SAC talking about all the dirt that they've dug up and they wanted to get out there. And as I said, just the analysts furiously writing down notes.
So it's like taking dictation
practically
from
yes.
the client.
Yes.
And these are all negative things.
Right, absolutely.
So did what the analysts write down get into the report?
No question, because at that point, a day or two later, the report is compiled. They give me the report. I review it. And I see, yeah, that's everything that was talked about in the conference call.
That's everything SAC wanted in the report.
Right.
The report was replete with comments like this: history of unusual aggressive accounting, earnings overstated, severely negative free cash flow. Mark Rosenblum was another salesman with the stock analysis company Camelback.
They were basically a shop for hire. If you pay them a certain amount of money, they'll form whatever opinion you want on a stock.
Had you ever heard of anything like that before?
No, not in my 14 years of work experience involved in the equity markets.
Camelback not only sold itself as a firm that disseminated impartial, unbiased reports, it also said that the people who wrote those reports were experienced with sterling credentials. Two other former salesmen, Robert Balish and Dimitri Anafantis, say that was far from the truth.
Most of them straight out of college, no Wall Street experience, did not understand sectors or industries that these specific companies were in.
I'd call them monkeys on a typewriter because they just take the information and just process it through and not really analyze it.
The lawsuit charges that in addition to influencing the content of the report, the hedge fund SAC weighed in on when it would be published.
SAC said, can you just wait a few more days? We want to be able to get into this.
So they chose the timing of the release on top of the wording of the release.
Right, exactly.
What does it mean that SAC was asking you to hold the report?
What it means is they need some time. As a big hedge fund, you need several days to get your position in.
Darrell says that SAC needed more time to make its bet even larger that BioVail stock would go down. Okay, so they were just waiting to get the optimum time
right.
to do this selling short transaction.
Right, because these are big hedge funds, and they have to make some big trades, and they can't make them all in one trade without the market seeing that. So they have to move into the stocks over a period of a few days.
This was June 2003, a time when most other analysts were writing favorably about BioVail. The company was about to introduce a new time-release version of the antidepressant Wellbutrin into the U.S. market. But Camelback's so-called impartial report was giving the company an F, usually a sign to investors to dump the stock now. According to the lawsuit, that report was sent out to all of Camelback's subscribers, banks, big mutual funds, but without telling them that SAC had ordered it. Did the BioVail report go to anybody outside of your client circle?
Yes, media, a lot of media outlets had access to the service as well.
So in other words, Camelback was trying to generate this publicity.
That's right.
That further helped SAC.
Sure.
It's difficult to prove a direct cause and effect between the dissemination of a research report like this one and a stock going up or down. In fact, BioVail stock didn't begin to sink for 20 days. Darrell, watching the market, called an SAC trader.
And thank goodness, it had gone down since we released the report.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, because I wanted him to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, hey Tim, how are you doing in that stock? He says, oh, we're making some money. It's a good start, but we want it to go down further.
So there were more reports, and BioVail stock continued to tank, falling 50% in 6 months. But in that time, BioVail issued 2 disappointing earnings statements. And yet CEO Melnick insists it was the Camelback reports that triggered the sell-off.
The damage that was suffered by the company, we can attribute directly to the reports that came out.
Several big-name banks began to advise their clients to get out of BioVail. Not people who necessarily got these reports from Camelback.
When you see a tidal wave coming, a tidal wave of negative publicity, a tidal wave of misinformation, and word gets out that the gorilla is about to stomp you, a lot of people run for the hills.
We have learned that on top of BioVail's civil suit, the Securities and Exchange Commission is investigating the case, looking into possible stock manipulation and conflict of interest. But proving outright securities fraud in this case won't be easy. Remember, hedge funds are barely regulated and operate under a veil of secrecy. And according to Richard Blumenthal, the Attorney General of Connecticut, home of SAC, the issue of what's actually illegal here is not so clear.
There's no prohibition against anyone calling an analyst and providing information. And that kind of free flow of information often can do the market good.
I'm curious to know whether it matters that the information was true or false. I mean,
it matters
for law enforcement.
It matters a lot whether the information is true.
So sharing in and of itself is okay, but if they're feeding false information,
with the knowledge that it's false.
With the knowledge that it's false.
For the purpose of driving down the stock and with a position in the stock.
All of that together is a crime.
with it may not, it depends on who knows what the criminal intent may be if it's there.
This is not going to be easy to prove, is what you're saying.
None of these securities violations is a slam dunk ever, under the best of circumstances.
In its defense, Camelback had already written a negative report on BioVale that predates this alleged conspiracy. Camelback told us everything in our reports was true. We and no one else wrote those reports. Nothing we did was illegal. SAC says that in 2003, BioVale stock was overvalued. Well, what do you say to people who say that BioVale was overvalued and that the hedge funds actually performed a service here in pointing this out?
I don't think there was any service that was performed here. I can tell you that. I think...
but were you overvalued?
There was virtually no analysts out there that thought that the stock was overvalued.
Well, no one considered it a blue-chip stock. Some analysts thought it was risky, and Melnick's been accused of just trying to silence his critics. Several Wall Street investors call CEOs like Melnick crybabies for suing when their stock goes down. And it is true that this is not Melnick's first lawsuit. 10 years ago, he sued another hedge fund, accusing it of spreading rumors about his stock in order to sell it short. The point is that you sue.
Oh.
This is what you do.
No, that's just not right. We don't sue just for the purpose of suing somebody. This is something that was carefully thought through, was very well researched, was extremely well lawyered. I can't wait for our day in court.
The Camelback insiders we spoke to are all cooperating with BioVale in its lawsuit. None of them still works for the company.
Each of us was released by the company.
Released, does that mean fired?
Yes.
Camelback says their former employees are, quote, lying and disgruntled, that Dimitri and Bob were fired because of unethical conduct, Daryl for poor performance, Mark was laid off. But they say they were let go after they complained to their bosses about the company's practices. Connecticut Attorney General Blumenthal has begun an investigation not of this case, but of hedge funds in general. He thinks it's time to start regulating that industry, to start trimming the hedges.
Joe Main Street can be impacted nowadays by hedge funds as never before. They control more money, they have more power. They're the elephant in the room that is unacknowledged a lot of the time, but they can hold huge market sway, and that's the reason why we need to know more about them, and I'm investigating so that hopefully there is more disclosure and transparency.
The hedge fund SAC denies all the charges in BioVale's lawsuit and says that the decline in the company's stock was due to earnings shortfalls and investigations by authorities, including the Securities and Exchange Commission, not any conspiracy. It's worth noting that Camelback, which is now called Gradient, has been sued by another company with charges that parallel the BioVale case.